House Republicans yesterday voted to overturn two bills that had been passed by the D.C. Council that would allow non-citizens to vote in local elections and go even softer on criminals. And Congress Lady Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she is not happy about it.
In direct contradiction of their quote-unquote conservative values of small government and defending freedom, have decided to expand the jurisdiction of this body to meddle into the business of D.C. residents. The D.C. City Council has the right to determine its policies for D.C. residents. And if any member of this body does not like that, they can feel free to change their registration, resign their post, and run for D.C. City Council.
Now, AOC says lots of things that are not true, but very often the false things that she says are false because they're exaggerations or selective interpretations or imaginative predictions. In this case, though, what AOC said is just perfectly, precisely, easily demonstrably wrong. The D.C. City Council does not have the right to determine the policies for D.C. residents. Congress does have that right. And that right doesn't come from some obscure section of the U.S. Code or some little-known court decision. It is laid out explicitly in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, quote, "The Congress shall have the power to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over the federal district, Washington, D.C." Now, at first, I figured AOC was just being disingenuous. The more I listened to her rant, though, the more convinced I became that she just sincerely doesn't have any idea how the Constitution established the government of D.C.
I understand that there may be disagreement. I understand that Republicans may not be happy with what the D.C. City Council is doing. But when cities in Vermont pass the same provisions, when San Francisco, when 9 Maryland cities brought up this provision, did the Republican Party corral all of Congress and bring this issue down to the floor for a vote? No, they did not. They are singling out the residents of the District of Columbia and expanding in the history of disenfranchisement that goes all the way back to the legacy of slavery. And they're bringing it right here to this floor because why? They don't have any real bills to debate.
No, it's just because that's Congress's job. The Congress is not overruling laws in Vermont and Maryland and in San Francisco because that's not Congress's responsibility. It's just basic civics, the sort of thing you're supposed to learn by the 5th grade, especially in a republic which cannot endure if even the elected representatives don't understand the basic functions of the government. I don't usually go after AOC these days. I don't hit her so much anymore because I feel it's played out. I feel this is the most basic, superficial kind of conservative commentary these days is just, hey, you see how crazy AOC is? You could do that. You could fill a show with that every single day. And so I generally stay away from it. But sometimes AOC demonstrates such blithe ignorance that one cannot ignore it. And this occurred not just yesterday talking about Washington, D.C., not knowing what the government of Washington, D.C. is supposed to be, even according to the Constitution, but this happened a couple days ago, too, when AOC was discussing the big tech hearings and testimony when the Congress was grilling these big tech executives, especially on things like the Hunter Biden laptop story. AOC went on a tangent about how upset she is that Libs of TikTok, one of the great Twitter accounts, is still on Twitter despite spreading false information.
Ms. Navaroli, are you familiar with the account Libs of TikTok?
I have heard of it from the news, yes.
Mr. Roth, are you familiar with this account?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Are you aware that from August 11th to August 16th, that account posted false information about Boston Children's Hospital, claiming that they were providing hysterectomies to children?
Okay. The claim, the accusation, Libs of TikTok posted false information suggesting that the Boston Children's Hospital transes the kids, specifically provides hysterectomies to children. That's the claim. Let's check to see if that claim holds up. Boston Children's Hospital, take it away.
A hysterectomy itself is the removal of the uterus, the cervix, which is the opening of the uterus, and the fallopian tubes, which are attached to the sides of the uterus. Some gender-affirming hysterectomies will also include the removal of the ovaries, but that's technically a separate procedure called a bilateral oophorectomy. And not every gender-affirming hysterectomy includes that, and people who are getting gender-affirming hysterectomies do not have to have their ovaries removed.
So it sounds like Libs of TikTok was right, because I'm watching a commercial now from Boston Children's Hospital talking about performing these hysterectomies. I guess you could say that Libs of TikTok didn't go far enough, because Libs of TikTok should also maybe have talked about bilateral oophorectomies. Is that how you pronounce that? But they did it. AOC could have just Googled that. AOC launches into this long emotional rant about how Libs of TikTok is lying about Boston Children's Hospital and hysterectomy. She could have just Googled it. It would have taken like 5 words. She didn't do that. She could have saved herself the rant about Washington, D.C. by reading the Constitution even just one time, or having learned anything in civics class in elementary school. And I know that they were teaching civics back when AOC was in school in Westchester, because I grew up one town away from AOC, and AOC went to the schools in the ritzier, wealthier, nicer area. So you assume she had a civics class. She just didn't learn very much from it. And it's not just AOC. I don't just mean to pick on AOC. There is a congressman, Representative Dan Goldman. He has a much more impressive, prestigious academic pedigree, certainly than AOC does. And he was humiliated almost as much, frankly, even perhaps more than AOC, because the expectations for this man were higher, when discussing a basic aspect of free speech law with the legal scholar Jonathan Turley.
Does the First Amendment protect someone from yelling fire in a movie theater?
Well, unfortunately, that one is not yes or no, because that's become a mantra for people. It's the Holmes Schenck line. Holmes himself walked back on
all right.
Holmes and
we don't need a law class here. But you do agree, though, don't you, that the First Amendment does not protect all speech?
No, there are limits to speech. All constitutional rights have limits.
I felt as though I were watching Always Sunny in this exchange. So he says at the top, can you yell fire in a crowded theater, to suggest that the right to free speech is not absolute, which is true, but of course it's not absolute, as Jonathan Turley admits, but that phrase, yelling fire in a crowded theater, that comes from a very famous case, Schenck versus the United States. It was a case about whether or not a man could be thrown in jail for passing out flyers against the draft and against the war. And it's a complicated case. I write about it at length in my book, Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds, #1 national bestseller on free speech and the evolution of speech. But it's a complicated case. And so Jonathan Turley says, well, actually, Representative Goldman, you've picked probably the worst example to talk about this. And because it's a little complicated, and it goes back to what Oliver Wendell Holmes said. And what is the representative goes, hey, all right, here, listen, we don't need to hear about, listen, we don't, it was just the Charlie Day response.
Look, buddy, I know a lot about the law and various other lawyerings. I'm well educated, well versed. I know that situations like this, real estate wise, they're very complex.
Actually, they're pretty simple. The forms are all standard boilerplate.
Okay, well, we're all hungry. We're gonna get to our hot plate soon enough, all right? But let's talk about the contract here.
Sorry, I forgot. Where did you go to law school again?
Well, I could ask you that very same question.
I went to Harvard. How about you? Where? Yeah.
I'm pleading the fifth, sir.
I'd advise that you do that.
And I'll take that advice into cooperation, all right? Now, let's say you and I go toe-to-toe in bird law and see who comes out the victor.
You know, I don't think I'm going to do anything close to that, and I can see clearly you know nothing about the law. It seems like you have a tenuous grasp on the English language in general.
Okay, well, filibuster.
Do you know what that word means?
Yep.
Yeah, what's that mean?
Listen, Professor, do you think you can yell fire in a crowded theater? Well, actually, the case that used that example ended up being largely overturned. Okay, listen here, mister. We don't need any of your lawyerings, okay? Let's go toe-to-toe on bird law. That's what Representative Dan Goldman sounds like. And what's so embarrassing about this is that the joke in Always Sunny is that Charlie Day is completely uneducated. Representative Dan Goldman went to Stanford Law. Dan Goldman went to what is considered the second best, most prestigious law school in the country. And he doesn't even understand the context of one of the most basic slogans from one of the most basic cases of free speech. These people don't know anything. And it's not just AOC. It's very easy to make fun of AOC because she's infamously ignorant. It's all these guys. It's not just AOC. People make fun of her. They say, oh, she's a bartender. I know plenty of bartenders who are a lot smarter and wiser than graduates of Stanford Law School. Okay? What's the excuse of the people from Stanford Law School?